I'd like to once again thank the Global Roundtable for having me speak today. As you just heard, my name's Kelly Williamson. I'm a fourth generation rancher from southwest Saskatchewan. Our operation is strictly cow-calf. Well, not strictly cow-calf. Cow-calf with backgrounders. We have participated in an environmental farm plan. We address different efficiencies such as cost efficiencies, efficiencies in genetics. We look at different ways to make the operation more resilient. We've been through periods of drought. We've been through periods of flood. In 2008, not just I, a lot of people in Canada were feeling the effects of BSE. In 2008, we've probably seen our lowest cow-calf prices, and at that period, I had to address the resiliency of income on my operation, so I diversified into consulting off farm. So, just to give you an idea of Saskatchewan here, it's really diverse in its ecoregions. I am from that mixed grassland area in the southwest corner. Our operation typically operates on altered or modified landscapes. Within that extreme southwest corner, though, are large intact native prairie habitats, unaltered habitats. These habitats developed under the influence of grazing, so it's not that it's a detriment to those habitats, but it's good to know that there's guys operating on these large native tracts. And since it's such a unique area, Environment Canada decided to have a multi-species action plan occur in that area. And I had, I guess, in some ways you call it an opportunity, to be contracted by Environment Canada and another organization called the Rancher Stewardship Alliance to engage stakeholders on different aspects of species at risk and what it meant to them on their properties and what it meant to them for management. And through that process, there was some key messages that came out of that stakeholder engagement. With dealing with species at risk, they felt that there needed to be new approaches, not just the typical environmental farm plan approaches that have been prescribed or used or benefited from in the past. They felt that there needed to be something that was more specific. There were some opinions out of that consultation that a simple easement wasn't going to provide the habitat necessarily, that an easement doesn't produce habitat. The producer's management will produce that habitat. And the typical approach in the past had been just BMPs. And it was voiced that just because a particular practice is used, it doesn't mean that necessarily an outcome will be generated. The ranchers in that area wanted to be recognized for the benefits that they provided to the public. The public, through its demand, drove this process of an action plan. And the private landowners in that area didn't feel that they should burden the whole price of providing that public benefit. Through the conversations, not just with ranchers, but these conversations also took place with biologists, species specialists, and it was a common thread line, the importance of biodiversity and heterogeneity. producers, in lots of instances, were already providing the habitat. And programming and engagement with producers in the past is usually just engage the guys that weren't maybe quite there. People who were producing habitat felt that they should be recognized for that. It was also in discussions when we were going to prioritize species at risk habitat in those areas. We were probably going to want to go out and protect the most pristine areas first. And as far as prioritizing, that was one of our approaches. And last but not least, the whole management strategy for the area and the agreements, we needed to incorporate adaptive management principles with discussions with the ranchers and in our tools that we used. So, one of the tools that kept surfacing to the top as a high priority was results-based conservation agreements. And simply, these agreements provide financial incentive for producers who reach specific habitat characteristics. So we have developed and implemented two specific models. One's for Sprague's pipit and one is for sage grouse. And I will just give you a quick view of the steps in the process. So you need to set explicit goals when you're going down this road. Our goals, for example, in the sage grouse was provide optimal habitat for brood rearing and nesting habitat for sage grouse. And then we worked with species specialists with Environment Canada and elsewhere in Montana to create specific habitat targets which we wanted to reach for those species. We worked with agrologists working on our biological response model on what kind of grazing management could achieve those outcomes. We have ongoing cost analysis. As you can imagine, any cost analysis, that's always fluctuating, depending on what you're punching in there. And then engaging the producers and implementing agreements. And of course, all this, because it's results-based, is followed up with fairly rigorous monitoring. Now that is, it has multiple benefits. It doesn't just benefit in ensuring your agreement is sound. It also plugs back into establishing those habitat targets when we're sharing this information with the biologists. So here's a quick shot at our sage grouse targets. And grass height is one of them. Forb cover is another, and then sage brush robustness is another. All these targets are specific to data that's been taken from those areas. They're not specific to, or they're not just pulled out of some Montana data. These are targets that are definitely achievable in those areas. So here's a quick look at a map. We'd maybe be sitting down with a producer on his property. As you can see, some of these yellow areas got 5 or 6 species at risk on them. When we're engaging those producers, we're aware of those species at risk, and we're trying to make sure that while we're achieving these other targets that we're not being a detriment to some other species. Also, not all that's going to be sage grouse habitat. Some of the lower areas where the sagebrush flats are, those are going to be your nesting habitats, and more of the areas that you might prioritize. Usually the top benches, those will be your pipit habitats. Those are the eco sites that correlate with them, and that is the two of the maps overlaid. Now, there are some problems that are faced or need to be discuss when you're implementing these types of projects. Your production goals don't always line up with your environmental outcomes. A producer's production goals might very well, and we've been talking about a lot about this, is that maximizing the utilization. When you're looking for sage-grouse habitat, it's well documented that they're looking for patchy style grazing. You can see right there that they might not line up. But that's also another reason to be discussing an incentive for this, because producers foregoing a utilization outcome. That also plugs back into the range condition and range health don't always directly correlate with some of these species at risk. There is overlap with some species, but not all species. When you're shooting for specific forb components and you're trying to promote increased mount cover forbs, that doesn't necessarily, it doesn't directly correlate with the range condition, because when you increase your forbs with range condition, you actually drop your score. And then the other thing I would caution moving forward is when you directly link your agricultural practices to environmental outcomes. 5 years down the road, if all of a sudden we're saying, okay, you do this, and it's an agricultural practices, and we're going to save some species at risk, and that tanks, I'd hate to see agriculture wear it, and I think you need to be cognizant of that when you're moving forward. Now, here are some opportunities. Before I jump into that, I just want to talk about Grasslands National Park. Grasslands National Park was started down in that area down in southwest Saskatchewan. Most ecologists know that landscape was evolved under ungulate grazing. Grasslands National Park came in there and they rested that park. And I think after seeing that and the effects that happened there, we've really moved forward promoting beef grazing on native prairie. They've realized that cattle and grasslands are a good fit, and that I think we've came a long ways, and we've came over a hurdle there. There's another event that's going on, more prevalent down in the States than. Although we just had an announcement here in Saskatchewan, there's mitigation and habitat banks. The state of California, I think, has 300. I think this is an opportunity to use tools like this to engage those offset requirements by oil and gas, mining, development, and providing primary or ranchers, producers, an opportunity to have another marketable product off their operation. Right now, in Saskatchewan, there's just an announcement the other day. There's a potash mine in Saskatchewan that's going to work directly with an NGO. I think there would be an opportunity for primary producers to be engaging in that mitigation and providing some of these habitat credits to some of these developments.